As a child, and I'm sure many of you, fell victim to a lot of the stereotypes of LGBT people that were portrayed in the media. I soon found out later in life that the LGBTQ plus community was not all about Ellen DeGeneres and rainbows. It actually had an entire community full of so many diverse people from so many different backgrounds, sexualities, and gender identities. Unfortunately, there's also a dark side to this, as many LGBT people do still experience discrimination in the society around them. Despite us feeling like a progressive society, it is still very prevalent. Now, as a member of the LGBTQ plus community and having friends part of the community, I have experienced and have seen other people experience instances of hate and exclusion just because of their identities. And I understand how important it is to accept LGBTQ plus people in our modern society. In my speech, I will feature descriptions of the arguments commonly used to refer to LGBTQ plus people as less than or as a way to disrespect them and disrespect their identities. To start, I will first address LGBTQ people throughout history. If you could please refer to the next slide. Many LGBT phobic people commonly believe that LGBT people most of the sexualities and identities are brand new and that they've been invented by younger generations such as millennials and Generation Z. However, that is not true at all, as it has actually been stated that LGBTQ plus people have existed for centuries now. In fact, according to Non-Binary Wiki 2021, LGBTQ plus people were actually featured in Sumerian and Akkadian tablets. These tablets are from around 2000 to 1700 BCE, which is about 4,000 years ago. Now, the image on the slide you're seeing is actually the disc of Enheduanna, which I'm really hoping I'm not mispronouncing. And the disc portrays Inanna, a character that is believed by some to have been intersex or androgynous of some sort. Morgan, 2017. Even more recently, though, according to Gale 2021, the movement for LGBTQ plus rights has been seeing success since the 1970s, which, as you may know, was over 50 years ago. As LGBTQ plus people gained more rights, they were allowed a lot of the same freedoms and liberties and advantages that cisgender people, which are people that identify with their same gender that they were assigned at birth, and heterosexual people, people that experience opposite sex attraction as defined by Gale 2020, that these people have in their everyday lives. Please refer to the next slide now. Now, as LGBTQ plus people were granted more human rights, like the right to adopt children, many LGBT phobic people had concerns about the quality of parenting that LGBTQ plus people could offer to their children. And according to Munsey 2010, a study done also in 2010 showed that the examinations of LGBTQ plus families was actually very well functioning as much as heterosexual families were. And according to Blue 2017, despite concerns of homosexuality being forced onto children, a study showed that LGBTQ plus teens that came out in school were actually a lot happier. They had a higher self-esteem, less stress, and less depression rates, which is compared to LGBTQ plus teens who didn't come out in school. And as stated by Sage 2020, about 4% of the US population identifies as LGBTQ+, which is about 10 million Americans. This shows that LGBTQ+ people are highly prevalent in our society especially when compared to the percentage of red-haired people in the world, which is only about 2%. Now, even though LGBTQ plus people are harmless and abundant in our society, they still experience a lot of discrimination. And unfortunately, it is done by the large majority of our society, specifically in America. If you could please refer to the next slide. In recent years, a law has been presented to many state legislatures titled the LGBTQ plus Panic Defense Law. Now, this law defends anyone who hate crimes an LGBTQ plus person, and that includes assaults and murder. Now, this crime is done in the name of someone panicking because of someone else's gender identity or sexuality. According to the LGBT Bar 2021, only about 12 states, and including the District of Columbia, have actually banned this law, whereas there are 13 other states who are still considering it, one being Texas. And even more recently, within this past week, Arkansas passed a bill that banned transgender youth from receiving the gender-affirming health care that they required. And the governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, actually vetoed the bill ever since it was passed, because he said that it was a step way too far, according to Romo 2021. And as stated by Sanchez 2021, LGBTQ plus related hate crimes that were reported totaled at about 5,462 incidents in 2014 alone. The astonishing numbers of hate crime and systemic discrimination and just the growing LGBT phobia as it comes to light it has actually decreased with time, but it is still heavily prevalent in our society, and it impacts not only LGBT communities, but the people around them, such as allies. If you could refer to the last slide now, please. As I've shown you today, LGBTQ plus people are not new, and they play large roles in our everyday society. They are not harmful, yet they are still facing discrimination, and there is still a lot of work to be done to create a more accepting environment. It sounds overwhelming in theory. There is still a long way to go. I know personally, when I found out a lot of these facts from such a young age, I felt overwhelmed and I felt like there was nothing to be done. I felt almost hopeless that nothing would ever change. But with small baby steps, we can work even harder towards a better tomorrow today. Now, to start with baby steps, you can first acknowledge that LGBTQ plus people exist. They are people and they deserve the same rights as everyone else. Now, these people, you need to understand, are also being discriminated against a lot in our everyday lives. And to help, you can protect them. You can stick up for casual homophobia in everyday conversations. You can correct the people around you, and you can help make the world a little bit of a better place. If you want to go deeper into it, you can also support LGBTQ plus businesses and foundations. You can introduce yourself with your pronouns so it can become normalized for transgender people. You can learn more about LGBTQ plus experiences from the people experiencing them, and so many other things. So if you are not LGBTQ plus, the takeaway is that you need to accept your privilege and use it to help LGBTQ plus people. Thank you.